Welcome to Amiga Ireland. I'm Irla.
I'm Rob.
I'm Luke.
It's Thursday the 6th of December, and in today's episode there is another Amiga accelerator card in the works, the CS540.
Plenty of new software actually, including a desktop notification system that I wrote.
GOS C64 Windows opens up to developers of the world as well.
And as usual, we have news, games, music and more to talk about. But first, how is everybody? Luke?
Well, I've been pretty alright, to be honest. I've been working hard to improve on my online store, Retro Ready. As I've noticed, still a lot of things need improvement. However, I'm slowly, really slowly getting there, to be honest. But I'm happy with the results.
It's looking good.
Cheers, thanks.
Good stuff.
I'm getting a lot of positive reviews from all around the world, actually.
Cool.
Actually, I saw you get reviewed on the 10-minute Amiga Retrocast.
Yeah.
From the States.
From the other side of the pond, yeah. Cheers to 10-minute Retrocast podcast as well. Thank you very much for your...
The 10-minute podcast that always lasts about 15-20 minutes.
But the name is cool. I like it.
It is. I like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Yeah. Thank you very much for your kind words and positive review.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Rob?
I've been busy. I'm just trying to remember all the things, but I have a couple of them there. The checkmate cases that I'm working on with Stephen Jones. So I finished the prototype boards for that. They're sent off, and so hopefully they'll be all assembled and the whole lot will be finished and ready to go, and we can start the actual manufacturing process very soon. I'm also working on replacing the SIM sockets on an Amiga 4000, which is, let's say it's not the most fun I've ever had, but it's fine. It's hi Alistair, if you're out there listening. And I've been building a new batch of my S02 adapters for the Amiga 500. So, people were looking for them for a while and finally got around to starting off another production batch. So busy with hardware here. As always,
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair play to you. Well, actually, just as an aside, last weekend there's an Irish TV soap called Ross and Aroon, and it's in the Irish language, and they ran an event, a charity event here in Galway, where the cast performed this kind of it was a mock wedding, a Banish Brega, and it was very funny. Myself, my wife, our girl went to it, and the crack was absolutely brilliant. They were very, very funny. The script, the whole thing was just really well done. So that was the highlight of our month, and getting to meet those people, because we've been watching them on TV for so long, and they're incredibly friendly. They were out dancing afterwards to the band, and very, very down to earth and sound people to hang around with, and they were really nice to my daughter. Actually, they all introduced themselves to her. So that was really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. But for the most part, I have been playing Star Trek 25th Anniversary on the Amiga and absolutely loving it. That came from Matty Whittle. Matty, thanks so much for that. It's been on a shelf in my room as a sort of a motivator to get through my degree. And so it was always kind of there. So whenever I was working or getting bogged down, I was like, okay, that's what's waiting for me when I get all this done. So when I did finally get it done, I forgot it was there for a few weeks, and I just, because I'm so long looking at it now, so I took it down finally. I always wondered, would it be as cool as it looked in the magazines back then? And it's an incredible game. Yeah, it's really well put together. Thanks again, Matty.
Great game, great adventure game, really nice one.
Right, let's move on to the news.
Okay, first up, and this is one that'll be a big one for a lot of people, the Vampire 1200 is starting to take shape. So this is basically a special version of the Vampire 4 that connects to an Amiga 1200. So there's a video there that the developers have put up, and it doesn't look like much, but you can see that what's happening is that the Vampire is communicating with the Amiga 1200 motherboard, and it's all sort of at a very, very low level. It's all starting to work. So, it's early stages yet, but definitely progress.
How much of the Amiga does it actually use, the 1200? Because I thought, is this the V4 that was going to be a standalone as well, no?
It is basically a V4 as well, so there's not a whole lot, to be honest, that it will use on the 1200. It's essentially going to be sort of input output and power.
Okay, yeah.
But the video is showing that it is communicating with the actual motherboard chips. So it's changing the colors of the screen and reading the mouse. It's interesting. It means that if you want to, you can still use the chipset. So so I don't know if that's the intention, to be able to swap and change, but it's good to be able to see that it's able to deal with the hardware at that level anyway.
As previously mentioned, GOS 2.0 source code has been recently released, and to all those people who don't know actually what's GOS, GOS is a Windows-like based operating system for C64. It looks really nice. It was developed by Berkeley College Studio back in the 80s. As far as I remember, that was 1986. There are a lot of, programs that can support GOS, and I'm really wondering if anything can be done with that, and the development of that system can actually be moved forward.
That's actually very exciting.
Very.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it back in the day. I remember reading about it. But yeah, no, I remember I never actually used it back in the day, but it'd be definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, because you used Atari at that time. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as I remember, yeah.
Which had no equivalent.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, when something is open sourced, more developers can get at it and kind of breathe life into it. So it'll be interesting to see if it happens in practice here.
Yeah,
we'll see. That's the test for open source now.
Well, we've got some more hardware for Amiga. This is a new turbo card from Poland for the Amiga 500, and it's called the CS540. We have a link here to a video where you can see it operating. The video is in Polish, but you can still view it. So if you don't speak Polish, you can just see it. But for our Polish listeners, you can get an awful lot of information. It's a good in-depth interview with the creators. It's being produced by CS Lab. It'll have 030, 040 and also potentially 060 editions, and the pricing is yet to be announced.
That's mental. Like to have an 040 or an 060 in a 500 is nuts. But brilliant. Yeah, and I think there was, if I remember right, there was a lot more to the card as well. Like, wasn't there possibility of adding networking and sound or something like that too?
Yes,
I can't remember.
That's
but it
right.
looks very,
and graphics cards as well. Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah,
an excellent.
So it's been progressing steadily, and the hopes are really, really high, I must say, for that card.
Excellent. Now there's been a bit of drama around the Amiga OS 3.1.4 release. I'm sure most people are aware, and if you're not, it won't take you long to find it on the internet. But basically, it was available for a digital download before the physical media was available, and then that digital download was stopped because of copyright problems and all sorts. And then it was started again, then it was stopped again, and now the physical purchase is available now, and a few people have seen a few pictures of it now. It looks very nice, it's all very nice and professionally finished with the labels and stuff. But and now the digital download is available again at the moment. So I don't know how long that'll be for, but it's available now. And if you are looking to get that as a digital download, now is the time to get it.
Playable early preview of Limbo for C64 has been released as well this month. And Limbo is a dark and gloomy and gritty game that was released, like a couple of years ago. It's a platformer with a certain type of how to describe it, with a certain type of specific atmosphere. And and specific puzzles, and it's got that dark humor as well, in my opinion. And I must say, I'm pretty impressed by the version released for C64. The developer says it'll actually happen, and the full version will be released for C64. However, a lot of work has to be done. So fingers crossed. I really look forward to that release.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's absolutely astounding.
Yeah, because I got that game in a Humble Indie bundle a while ago, and I didn't really play it much, but I saw the kind of basically the concept of it. But I know a lot of these sort of indie retro style games look like they'd run on a retro computer, but in reality they don't because of how they're written and because you don't really notice that there's lots of lighting and particle effects going on, even though it's 2D. But, this would be impressive now to see the finished product, and, the fact that it's even being attempted on a C64 is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be sorting out my C64 for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Image Mounter 1.3 has been released on AmiNet, and Image Mounter, like other programs like this, allow you to mount images like, say, ADF floppy disk images or the HDF, the hard disk images, and ISOs and things like that. I use Disk Image GUI personally for this, but the advantage of this one is that it works on a 68,000 CPU, so you can use it on, an Amiga 500, Amiga 1000, those kind of machines as well. So that's available now, and the link is in the show notes.
Eyebrows 2.5 is developing steadily, and they've recently released another beta version. Now it's an internal beta, but so if you are a beta tester, you'll have it, but it's not public. But you can see the changes on the website, and it is it's nice to see there's some steady progress being made there. Small changes, but steady progress nonetheless.
Looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so am I. I'm still using the older Eyebrows all the time.
Same as me.
Yeah. Anim Player has had a new release with an added loop feature and some bug fixes. So Anim Player lets you play animations that were designed. So in my case, I received a 3D animation from Muad'Dib, who was giving us something to use for the event, something really nice that he's done with our logo. And I was looking for a way to play it, so I went online looking for a way I could test the Amiga file on my MacBook. And I found this program called Anim Player. It works really well. It turns out Anim Player was created by Midwan, who is Muad'Dib's friend, and they're living together in Sweden. So that was very funny. But so if you want to play Amiga animations, 3D animations and stuff like that on your modern computer, Anim Player will do the job nicely. So thanks for that, Midwan. Great job.
Very good. CS Labs have another news item here, and it's the Warp 1260 accelerator. So, as the name suggests, this is an 060 accelerator for the 1200. And again, early days yet, but this is it's an exciting time for accelerator production, basically, in no small part by these guys and Terrible Fire. There's so much going on at the moment, but this is great because people have been asking for an 060 for a long time. And,
no one was brave enough to develop it or to start
absolutely.
it, I was surprised as well when I saw it on Polish Amiga Portal, to be honest, and I was really excited, it was really exciting to see actually the first, pictures, of the developer board as well. So again, fingers crossed, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and again, something from the C64 world. If you have, just like me, 264s lying around because they are dead, because their SID chip is dead, here comes some help from Czech Republic. A developer has developed something called ARM-SID, and I've heard the samples of it playing, and it sounds really, really good. And there is noticeable difference, but still, sounds absolutely magnificent comparing to original SID. So I look forward to mass production, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will order it and will buy it because of the Ultimate 64, for example, or the project of the motherboard from individual computers as well. Amongst that, I will buy it myself, to be honest, or at least two, to revive my two C64s.
Good stuff.
Very good one. And another story from C64. Chris Simpson has made actually a C64 made of Lego bricks. There's a video on YouTube of him making it happen, and it looks very, very exciting. And I must say, that was a challenging thing to do. It looks really great. And there's a whole campaign, and the video and the description will be in the show notes.
A new version of Twit Amiga has been released, and this Twit Amiga lets you log into your Twitter account. Basically, it's in a Twitter application for Amiga, and it runs on OS 3, at least for me. And this new version has some bug fixes, but more importantly, they've matched the new Twitter API that has the increased character limit, so now you can send longer tweets.
It's excellent.
Yeah, and I think it works faster as well, to be honest. But that might be my impression, but it works a bit faster than the old version too. So it's been probably a bit of optimized here and there.
Bit of my own news now. I think I talked about it in the podcast before, but I just after writing a notification system for Amiga OS 3. So OS 4 has a built-in notification system, you know, the kind of thing in other systems where, a little bubble will pop up with a message and then disappear by itself. So it's non-intrusive, and it's just things like, you received a new mail from such and such. Well, I'm after releasing a commodity that does that a similar thing for OS 3, and it's compatible with the OS 4 version. So, if you have AREX scripts that already work with an OS 4 version of YAM, for example, that are, anything like that, it will work on OS 3 as well. So, at the moment, it's just a simple white bubble that pops up and it disappears after a few seconds. But, a lot of feedback I got, people wanted to look more OS 3 alike and, so have it grey instead of white and things like that. So I got to, add some customization options and have a new release soon enough. But the first version's available to download now.
Great job, Rob. Great one.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to installing that.
Oh, me again. And SMBFS, or Samba file system, has had a major update, and this has been chugging along in the background for a while. Olsen's been working on that, and this is great. This lets you access Windows shares on other machines. So on a network storage or, on Linux boxes. It's a bit funny when you go talking to more modern versions of Windows and Mac OS, but, it can be made to work. But this is a major update that's fixed a lot of problems with the older version. So it fixes issues with the protocol, fixes some speedy issues, fixes some file corruption issues, and it's basically, it's been in the works for a couple of years now, but this is a really big update. There are versions of that for OS 3 and OS 4. And
it's, if anyone hasn't tried it out yet, it's absolutely mental to be able to be on your, let's say, workbench and double click an icon and have a window open up that represents 4 terabytes of storage space on a remote machine, like is the case here. I have a computer up in the attic, a headless setup, and to be able to transfer all kinds of stuff for the Amiga, it's really cool. Yeah,
it's mad, isn't it?
useful as well.
I have 4 or 5 machines here, and OS 3 machines, OS 4 machines, more for OS machines. And PCs, Linux PCs, and I use a network drive to just swap between them all the time, and I'd be lost without it. So I was using an older version of it, and I haven't actually tried this new update yet, but I will do. I have a front end, a GUI for SMBFS. I feel like it needs to be updated now because there are some new features in this version of SMBFS that I need to take into account. So that's another thing on my Christmas list for to do work on.
Go for it, Rob.
Yeah.
Plato term for Amiga version 0.2 has been released, and this is, we spoke briefly about this in the last episode. This allows you to connect to Irata Online, the multi-platform online environment. You can listen to the last episode if you haven't to learn a bit more about that, and Scene World did a more in-depth interview about it as well. So version 0.2 will allow you to connect using your Wi-Fi devices that you have connected to the serial port on your Amiga. Now, we've just had in the last few minutes a Twitter exchange with the author, and he's going to add support for some other devices. So at some point we'll be able to use your PCMCIA Wi-Fi as well. And so who knows, next time we record an episode of the podcast, we might have more news for you on that. But
excellent.
Yeah, it is excellent. I'm really looking forward to getting into that environment. So Tom Cherryholmes, who has developed all this, thanks, because it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of work as well that he's putting into it.
It's unbelievable, really. I still can't believe it. I'll have to spend a lot of time there to sort of let the reality of it dawn on me of, what's actually there, and the fact that, the other people you're collaborating with could be on a Commodore 64 or a Spectrum or an Apple II or an Atari 8-bit or, or an iPhone, you know what I mean? It's just nuts, yeah. I could go on.
It's the internet of an alternate reality.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's the dream.
Yeah. Ami Signix has had an update. This has been in the works for a while. If you're not familiar with it, Ami Signix it's an X desktop environment basically for OS4, and it lets a fair selection of ported Linux software run, still using the Linux graphical interface. It makes it very easy to port stuff, and it lets you run things like, Office software that otherwise, will be just too difficult to port, too complex to run. So it feels a bit weird to run it, but it is very useful at the same time to be able to open Word and Excel documents and to be able to run GIMP on your Amiga, and it's quite nice. So, but that's had a major update because over time, I think there were some compatibility issues that crept in, and with the latest update of OS4, there were some problems, and I think there's been a sort of fairly serious overhaul of the core of it. I feel like that's something that might interest you. It's available now on OS4 Depot.
Amiga's second edition, episode 8, has been released, and it's a Polish podcast actually, but in English. And after a long time, Krzysztof Radzikowski is back, and he is not alone. He's got a new co-host, and his name is Marcin, and they say that they have a plan. If you want to hear about that plan, have a listen. The link will be in the show notes.
That's a guy who knows how to do a really good podcast, so I'm looking forward to it.
I absolutely agree. I used to work with him, and I can recommend him. He's really good.
Okay, let's move on to the gaming section.
The first thing is the Strategos port for Amiga OS 3 with Warp OS. Strategos is an open source game engine for real-time strategy games, and the most particular thing is it allows you actually to play Warcraft and Warcraft 2 on your Amiga natively, and therefore I felt like it's worth mentioning, because that game was previously only available to play on PCs and Macintoshes. I can understand that it is possible to play, like those games using Fusion Mac emulator or Shapeshifter emulator, but still playing it natively has been a dream of Amigans for quite some time, I think.
Yeah, so this is like sort of more of an engine, if you like.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, very good.
Very good.
Barbarian Plus has been released for Amiga, so you can get a copy of it now and play it. And it's an enhanced version of Barbarian, so the graphics, the sprites are much smoother. The graphics are much improved, and I noticed as well the screen seems to shake a bit on impact. It's a cool kind of effect that you might have seen in the arcades. There's just a lot more refinement that's gone into it. So if you like that game, you might like this.
Very good. Looking at remakes of modern games on old machines, someone's working on a port of Farming Simulator for the C64, which is very impressive as well. And this looks great. It looks exactly as you might expect it. It's a isometric thing with the C64 palette, and it just looks spot on. So it's very, very good. It would be great to see what comes of that.
Another game for C64 called Zombie Calavera Prologue has been released. If you like games that are platformers with great graphics, fantastic music, and really polished, you should and you must have a look at this one. The game features actually a unique style of dark graphics and dark silhouette with a very nice deep blue background. So the game is really playable, and I've spent some time playing it on my C64. I can recommend it to anyone.
And Karen Thank You Edition 2018 has been released, and Indie Retro News have the scoop there, and we've got a link to that. So this is an adventure game, and it looks very good, very nice graphics, and it looks like actually something that I would want to play next once I get finished with Star Trek. It's got that same kind of immersive environment look to it. So you can head on over to Indie Retro News and have a look for yourself and see what you think.
I think it's a tribute also to Manic Mansion, because the game looks absolutely brilliant, to be honest, you know?
It does.
A true adventure type game.
Let's move on to discoveries.
Thanks to Daniel Tsiganek for the information and the tip. I've discovered Codemasters CD Game Pack. As you all remember, Codemasters is a really big company, and it's got a history of games for Spectrum, C64, Amstrad, almost all 8-bit machines and 16-bit machines as well. Not to mention the games like Dizzy, Slicks, or Seymour, the recent ones Colin McCree. So this game pack might be very interesting for all the 8-bit players. The link is in the show notes. Why not have a look?
I recently found out that there's a port of FSUAE for Haiku. So Haiku is, a modern open source remake of BIOS, and it's got more than a few nods to the Amiga way of working. It's a really nice operating system, and if you've got a computer knocking around or even a virtual machine, it's worth downloading it and having a go of it. But someone's ported FSUAE to it, which is great to see, because it's a niche of a niche, that is.
Wow, yeah. Ever since we mentioned Haiku a few episodes back, it's been on my mind, so now that's like double the reasons to give it a look. My discovery is that light pens need a CRT to work. You can't use them with LCD screens. So I discovered that when I met someone from Galway who bought some Byte magazines from us here that Eddie Carroll donated, and we were talking about Commodore stuff and their first Commodore machine. Hi Ernie, if you're listening. So he was explaining to me that the story with the light pens, and we're going to have some more news about light pens in another episode, so that's all I'm going to say about it for now. But they're very interesting, especially when it comes to retro. Another kind of hobby I've gotten into in the last few weeks is reading comics, and I thought I would love to be able to read these on an Amiga, and they're usually distributed in some kind of archive format, like a CBR is very common. So I went looking on Aminet to see what was available, and you can get a comic reader for OS4, and you can get one for Aros, and you can get one for Morphos, but there's nothing for OS3 at the moment. The closest thing on Aminet is there are pre-packaged comics that you download, and it's either just a collection of images or it's a slideshow that will launch itself. But there's nothing yet to actually read them with, so that's an interesting little gap that could be plugged without too much work, I think. That
is interesting, because there's a crowd that release, maybe it's just a guy, I don't know, software with R&O in the name, and he's released some of the comic book readers, but he releases stuff for OS3 as well, so it's strange that he's missed that. Might be worth asking him, is there a problem with it?
I think he's been releasing a lot of stuff for MorphOS, as far as I remember.
Yeah, he releases across for every platform, so that's why I'm surprised there isn't an OS3 one, because he released a PDF viewer for OS3 recently.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that's almost 90% of the way there to a comic book reader. It might be worth sending him a mail just to see, is this something he's working on?
It might, and it's possible that I've just missed, that it already exists, but I'll get in touch and I'll ask and see what's going on. It's definitely not coming up in the Aminet brings up 2 pages of search results, and none of the actual readers are for OS3. So yeah, I'll give him a shout and see.
Yeah.
Right, it's time for community news and events. The workshops for Amiga Ireland 2019 have been confirmed. So we have 4 workshops. There is one on GoTech programming, one on Aros installation, one on Amiberry, and one on Lightwave 3D modelling on Amiga. So all really exciting. And of course, while these are going on, there's game competitions happening all day. So there's both days. So there's something for everybody happening all of the time. So the GoTech programming workshop is being done by Daniel Tsiganek. The Aros installation will be Neil Cafferkey, who is a developer of Aros. Amiberry configuration will be with Midwan, and Lightwave 3D will be with Muad'Dib. So we have 2 Greeks as represented twice in the workshops this year, which is really cool. You can attend any workshop you like. You don't have to have anything specific. You can just be there to watch or to learn. or you can bring the necessary gear, and we'll talk more about that in our Christmas special. And also, in regards to the Amiga event in January, get your t-shirt orders in now if you want them. They're only available on pre-order. Last year, the mugs, we could bring extras in because it's one size fits all. They're all the same. But with the t-shirts, there's different colours, different sizes. So it's all on a prepay basis. So get your order in before it goes to the printer. It's only €9. They're very high quality. The shirts themselves are fruit of the loom, and the print will outlast even those shirts. So you can take a look on our Facebook page, our Twitter, and see what they look like, and see if you want to order one.
Cool. I'll have to do that.
Fair play.
The Scottish Amiga user group meeting up this weekend coming. So if you happen to be around Glasgow on Sunday, that's Sunday the 9th of December. So it's only if you've listened to this within a couple of days of it coming out. We're going to be meeting in the Shawlands Church, which is right beside Crossmalouf train station. And that's in Glasgow. So it's a small meeting, but we're going to have the Sensible Soccer Tournament. We're going to have a workshop installing OS 3.1.4. I think there's a MIDI workshop in the works, or at least a MIDI demonstration in the works. We'll have to see. And we're going to have a couple of special bits of hardware that are sort of, sneak previews. So I'm not going to say what they are because I'm not sure if they'll actually be ready on time. But, they're still being soldered together. But so there we go.
Fair
Should
play.
be fun. Oh, no, of course, there's the pints afterwards, which is
fair play to you, lads. Stick a few photos up for the rest of us that can't be there this time.
Yeah, definitely. We'll
Absolutely.
spread them all around the internet.
Yeah, will do.
Another thing, a big thank you to Matty Whittle for donating to Amiga Island while purchasing tickets to the event. That's really kind of you. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thanks again, Matty. We're a non-profit event. We're actually currently looking into registering as a charity in Ireland. We're just trying to figure out what's the right entity to register as. And the reason we're doing that is that basically any money that comes in does not get, given, like say, I don't use it or give, I don't buy myself a lunch or pay for my hotel or anything with it. It just goes to support the event and develop it to be a better event each year, and maybe, bigger space, whatever is needed. So by way of just letting people know that when they go to buy tickets, none of this is going to be wasted, and for sponsors to know as well that the money is going to a good cause. If we're registered as a charity, it's the way for people to know that the accounts do get audited once per year by the body in Ireland that approves charities. So that's something that hopefully we'll be able to announce.
This is a question, or it's a sort of a subject that gets regularly asked about, and it's to do with the Commodore 64. I think a lot of people remember that you don't touch the joystick when you're loading it from cassette tape on the Commodore 64 because it just wrecks it. And, you'll have to start loading again and it upset people after you've been sitting there for 5 minutes waiting on it. Why that is, it's all related to the CIAs that the Commodore 64 uses. So, the Amiga uses CIAs for the input and output stuff, like the parallel port, disk drive, that kind of stuff, the keyboard, that kind of thing. CIAs just stands for complex interface adapter, which is basically means it sort of handles a variety of input and output functions. But C64 also uses them, and they're a little bit more primitive. So what happens is that you will have noticed, even if you just sit there with the Commodore 64 ready prompt and you wiggle the joystick, I think in port 2, that some characters start appearing on the screen. And basically it's because the CIAs are they're multi-jobbing, and so the pins that read the keyboard are also reading the joysticks, are also reading other inputs and outputs. And so basically the computer depends on context to decide what to do with the information that it gets from the CIAs. So a game will read the joystick port and it'll say, okay, I know that means joystick up. Whereas the keyboard, when you're typing, it thinks it's a keyboard input, and so the information gets processed as a keyboard input. When you're loading things from tape, that input just gets mixed up with all the others, the constant stream of information coming in, and you end up corrupting the data that's coming in from the tape. That ruins your load. So, you go off to make your cup of tea and you find that your little brother's after wiggling the joystick, and you come back and you say the game hasn't loaded, and that's it. Start again. Yeah, that's all down to the sort of the fairly limited nature of the chips that were used in CIA. And, thankfully the Amiga doesn't suffer from that with the more advanced chips. But it is also the reason, or part of the reason, why why using Mega Drive pads is so bad with the Commodore 64. Is basically because a Mega Drive pads have their own chip in them, and they're not wired to work for the Commodore 64. They just happen to sometimes work accidentally, basically. It essentially fights with the CIAs. And the chip in the Mega Drive pad says one thing, and the CIA is using that same line to do something with the keyboard as well. And basically, yeah, it's fighting with it. That stresses out the CIAs and eventually burns them out. So don't use MD pads with a C64 without either modding them or getting a special adapter for them to make them safe.
Okay, that's interesting. I had heard about it, but I didn't realize how it worked, and it's good that there's a workaround, because the Sega pads are actually really nice.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's actually simple enough if you have a soldering iron and you know how to use it. A couple of D connectors and just like one diode on each line, so 5 signal diodes of 1N4, 1/4/8. Just connect them up and swap over pins 5 and 7. Put the diodes in each of the lines. You can find diagrams for these all over the internet, and that's it. That's all you need, and then it'll be 100% safe on the C64. Very
nice. When I got a copy of Flashback back in the 90s, a friend of mine came to stay. He came up from I think it was Limerick. He came up from, as my sister's boyfriend's younger brother at the time, and he brought up the Sega gamepad with him. And I didn't think it would work on the Amiga, but it worked really well. And suddenly we could get past all these levels on Flashback that I couldn't get past before because of the extra buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
So I suddenly became a gamepad convert for at least that game.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to online activity then. We've got a lot of new members again in our Facebook group. So to start off, hello to Fernando Oliveira, Jermid Naughton, Amigatronics, Declan O'Brien, Retro Ready.
And Gareth McKittrick, Israel Ortuno, Paul Kamnick, John Riley, Ollie von Waldbrol,
Alessio Garzi, Manuel Miguez, Sam Wojcicki. I don't know, is that right?
I think it's Watkowski.
Watkowski.
I'd say sounds very Polish to me.
It does. Yeah, certainly not Irish.
Yeah.
And Vic Zoltar.
Yeah, welcome to the group, everybody. And Vic Zoltar has actually just posted some music that won 3rd place in a competition. It's very cool. You can go and check it out. It's a nice mellow track. We got an email to our email address is info@amigausers.ie, and this email reads, "Finally, I see a real man. Oh, it seems I'm ready to be yours today. Me and this bottle of red wine. Wink." That's from Jacqueline, and it also includes a picture of Jacqueline from the neck down. So thanks for the email, Jacqueline. I'm not sure which of the three of us that is for, though, so if you just want to get back to us on that, maybe we can take things further from there.
I think one bottle is not enough here, to be honest. And I'd love to swap it for something stronger.
And let's see, we've got, so the top activity then online, the top Facebook post over the last month has been Seamus's post, Name the Game, where he distorts a screenshot or box art from an Amiga game, and it's a lot of fun, actually. So if you're not in the Facebook group, that alone is worth joining it for. So that was the top post according to the Facebook stats, and congratulations to Wayne Holiday on getting the answer right after a lot of previous guesses. It was a good one, actually. There was a lot of comments, a lot of guesses until the right answer came out. Our top tweet was actually our announcement about our special guest for Amiga Ireland 2019, Volker Vertig, as well as the Plato terminal for accessing Irata Online. And that's it for today. So next time we're going to hopefully have a Christmas special, something short for the Christmas coming out just a few weeks' time. Until then, we'll take care.
Bye-bye.
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 We're playing out with Welcome by Zoltar, which came 3rd place in CompuSphere 2018.
Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe to Eve, Jacqueline, and a bottle of wine.